Hey, this is Andrew Aversa with Impact Soundworks, and it's been over 5 years since we first released Shreddage 2. It's been used by thousands of composers and producers all over the world, but it's time for the next generation. And so today, I'm incredibly excited to present Shreddage 3 Stratus. This is a new family and engine for electric guitar and bass virtual instruments. We've rebuilt it from the ground up using everything we've learned by making virtual guitars and basses over the last 5 years. The performance engine, tweakability, the modular effects track, and articulation control are all light years ahead of any of the Shreddage 2 instruments. And the first release for Shreddage 3 is a legendary guitar sound that we've sampled for the first time here. It's got 3 pickups, all the key articulations you would want, and tons of features. This is going to be more of an overview video. I'll talk about all of the key upgrades, improvements, and features that you might be interested in, and then we'll get into even more detail in future tutorial videos. So first, let's hear what this sounds like with one of the demos. Alright, so that's Passing of the Blue Crown, and one of the most important improvements that we've made in Shreddage 3 is something you heard right at the very beginning, and that's an improved fret and string selection algorithm, or actually multiple algorithms. 4-string was available before, but what we've added is the ability to set specific hand positions as well as fretting mode algorithms. Now if we play with the hand position, you're going to hear how big of a difference it makes to play either lower down on the fretboard, in the middle, or at the top. And so by moving the virtual hand, and this is something that can be automated or done using key switches, you can dramatically affect the tone. Also, changing the fretting mode algorithm is going to make a difference as well. So if we set it to natural, it's going to be a little bit different than if we set it to moving lead or sweep. So just by using 4-string, hand position, and changing the fretting mode, you can completely change the way your parts sound. Now there's a 4th mode here called polyphonic, and this is useful for when you're writing large chords. So using moving lead, let's play a nice wide 6-note chord. And then a G. So as you can see, moving lead doesn't work too well for this because it's trying to take those notes and play it more like a lead part by moving the hand as much as possible. But since we're trying to play chords, it doesn't really work. In Shreddage 2, you were limited to just one algorithm, but here we can change to polyphonic, and there we get nice fully voiced chords. But it actually gets better than this. We wanted to make it easier and reduce the amount of editing you have to do. So we added a new feature called Poly Input. This is basically a look-ahead window that adds some delay to the track, but in exchange you get more realistic chords and voicings. The reason why is because normally the engine can only see each MIDI note in the order that you play it. It can't look into the future. So if I play an E chord again, but I do it in a sort of a random order, even in polyphonic mode, the engine doesn't know what to do because it can't possibly know that after that first note, I'm going to go down and then 2 octaves up and back down again. With poly input enabled, Increasing that look-ahead window, we can play large chords even without pressing the notes in the exact right order. And it sounds great. You can mix this with normal lead playing too. Or if we play some wide chords again with poly input enabled, now even better, you can combine this with the new strumming features that we've added. So if we go to the strumming tab and we enable strum on poly input and then play some chords, let's say something like this. So what's happening here is that when it detects that a chord is being played, it'll strum the chord using velocity to modify the speed and dynamic of the strum. But to show strumming in more detail, I'm going to switch projects and we're going to check out this funk demo. Anyway, that is the new strumming engine in action. Let's go ahead and look at this first part. Strumming mode is something that can be enabled on the UI or by using a key switch, which is in this upper pink-purple range. And when it's enabled, if we look at the piano roll data, you input chords in the blue area, and these don't actually sound, but this tells the engine what notes you're going to strum. And then these notes up here become strum keys. So with those notes deleted, I can play along to the chords. You can create your own rhythm at any tempo. Or increase it. It's completely customizable. You can use any notes, any chords, any rhythm you want. And then to control the speed and velocity of the strums, you can do that either with MIDI CC or via note velocity. In this case, I'm using velocity for speed, and then to control the strum velocity, I'm using a CC curve, which you can see here. I just find this a little bit easier to visualize. Now, something else you might notice on the fretboard is we now have a capo feature, and this changes how the chords are voiced. So if we play this and then we move the capo by dragging, the capo will tell the virtual guitarist, the stringing and fretting algorithm to voice the chords appropriately, and it changes the way open strings trigger and everything else. Of course, this can be automated just like any other control. Right-click, and you can do Learn MIDI CC Automation. The other thing with strumming is that you don't have to use just sustained articulations. You can hear in the riff, I'm using key switches to activate mutes sometimes. So if we go and play this, that changes the tone. It gives it a little bit of a tighter sound. If we take those mutes and we go even lower velocity, what we get basically a full choke kind of sound, which is perfect for that sort of funk waka chicka effect. So this is the same strumming engine. It's not a separate articulation. It's all just built into Shreddage 3. Another feature we added to the strumming engine is the ability to pick individual notes, and you can see that in the teal key range up here. Each one of these notes corresponds to a string. So first, let me play some chords. These are played with poly input, and then we have strum on poly input, just so you can hear the progression. Should be pretty familiar. And now let's pick some of these notes. Basically, once the note is being played, whether it's in strumming mode or just regularly, each one of those teal notes will re-trigger a note on that string. And then if you use the sustain pedal and you enable strumming mode, then you can get some pretty neat and musical effects. There's also the ability to do partial strums, and you can see those keys here at the bottom in the pink range. Partial strums will play some, but not all of the notes, the lower strings, then the upper strings. You can change that distance either by CC or velocity. So if we play this again, if we adjust the distance, in this case we have it set to CC1, then switching back to the picking strings there. And remember, these features can be used both in strumming mode or if strumming mode is off, as long as you're playing a chord in the blue range. Okay, so now let's change gears a little bit. I want to talk about console. This is like our previous effects rack taken to an entirely different dimension. Before, you were limited to a set chain of effects. You could enable and disable them, but it was like 6 to 8 effects, and that was really all you got. Here we have a completely modular mixer with all of these effects that can be instantiated in any order you want. They can be moved around. You can save presets and load presets later, share them with other users, and even import them from one project to another as long as it uses console. A big advantage of this is that we can not only give you more custom tone shaping possibilities, but we can take advantage of a bunch of the new Kontakt 5.7 effects, like better amps and pedals. So for example, let's take a look at some of the presets we have. We've got everything from super high gain stuff, great for metal, you can see this uses the new Hot Solo amp, which was not available in previous versions of Kontakt, as well as a selection of new cabinets, which we've custom recorded for Shreddage 3. We've got a whole bunch of classics here, each of which has 2 different mics and 2 mic positions each, in addition to all of the old Shreddage 2 amps. These have a dramatically different sound, so if we just play simple power chords, for example, or we could do more clean sounds like this one. Or other kinds of high gain sounds. So going back to the Blue Crown project, let's check out some more of these tones in context. Got a huge range of effects available with console presets. You also have presets that can be saved and loaded within each individual effects, and it's all shareable, modular, portable between any console projects that you might have. Of course, having multiple pickups available means you can change the sound just by changing the pickup in real time. So many ways to change your riffs. Just a couple more things to show with the instrument. One is that we've got multi-tracking, of course, which is going to be great if you want to do custom effects for each channel, or if you just want an easy way to get stereo spread. Going back to the funk track for a second, I've got 2 guitars set up on this rhythm strum. It's really just that simple. You just click a second guitar, and there you go. If you want to route these to separate outputs in your host, you'll need to use 2 different instances of the instrument. You would set one to guitar 1, and then the other would go to guitar 2. But it's still really convenient to have this from a single instance, and here you can even do quad tracking all in one. Last but definitely not least, we also have a new Takt 2.0, and this is used for articulation mapping. Here you can set any articulation to any combination of key switches, velocity, key range, MIDI CC, and this is great because everybody has their own preferences for how they want to trigger things. For example, some people like key switches only, and other people might want to layer these by velocity or have sustains in one range, power chords in another. So let's say we've got some nice beefy power chords, but you want to lop off some of that attack. Very easy to do that here in Takt. You also have more control over the legato articulations. You can adjust the parameters here, like making it shorter or more exaggerated. And this also applies to tremolo slides. So you really have a lot of flexibility in how these articulations are triggered and how they sound. Anyway, there we have it, your first look at Shreddage 3 Stratus.